Hi, I'm Mana Moini, and you're listening to the Humanity Podcast. Today's guest is a dynamic leader and the ultimate community connector. I want to welcome my friend and CEO of 2043, Jeff Aguy, to the show. Hi, Jeff. Welcome.
Oh, thanks so much, Mana. It's a privilege to be here. You know, I'm a big fan of yours, and the podcast season 1 was amazing. So thank you for the invite.
Thank you so much. You are like one of the most supportive people I know. We met a few years ago, and you've just given me the ultimate support through this journey of working on my purpose. And I am so excited for this community to feel that energy from you, because ultimately, if we don't have support, I mean, we all need that nowadays.
For sure, 100%. You know, it's interesting you said it was a few years ago. Now I think in COVID years, so that feels like it was like a decade ago, especially after the pandemic. You know, I think we're rediscovering what it means to be human. We're apart for such a long period of time. And even though it might feel like a distant memory, it wasn't too long ago that we couldn't hang out or, you know, we couldn't be in space together. So definitely appreciate this platform that connects people together, and also for the listeners and everyone who's a part of the community.
So like I said, you're a community connector and a lot of people are familiar with you. But for those who aren't, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I always think of myself from the standpoint that I'm from a small village. I'm a kid from a small village in Haiti. My father has such a big impact on my life. He fled Haiti for political asylum in 1994 and came to America, and he got on a boat and navigated his way here. And so when I always frame myself as someone who believes in the power of what the future can look like when we take control of it, but also the importance of community. I grew up for those 3 years without my dad, with my mom and siblings, and community raised me. And so I'm a community person. I'm someone who deeply believes in the possibility of what the world can look like when we all live in our purpose, when we all work together. I work in economic development. I own a strategic advisory firm called 2043. We focus on infrastructure, workforce, and innovation. And more recently, we're getting more into climate and energy, as that is such a big issue. But I'm from a small village, and community is important to me. And I kind of take that village mentality everywhere I go, and in whatever space I'm blessed to be a part of. I think of it as a village and my people, and you're one of my people. So it's a blessing to be on this podcast, having probably conversations that we have all the time.
We have them all the time,
Yeah.
And they mean so much to me. What is one thing that people don't know about you?
You know, I would say most people don't know about me. Like, I'm a comedian, kind of. Like, I like to have fun. Like, I'm
You're
one of
funny.
those people who my wife, like, I sneak, make her laugh every day. Like, I really like to have a good time. You know, people might see me with a lot of the work that we do as being serious, or even kind of with the events of bringing people together. But I just really like to have a good time and laugh. Like, if we can laugh, I think it's a good time. So that's something that most people might not know about me when they first meet me.
Yeah, they probably think, well, he's just a serious guy trying to get things done.
Yeah,
right?
It's like, we're going to have fun doing it too, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things I admire about you is that you are unapologetically yourself.
Ooh. Yeah.
Like, unapologetically. Why is that so important, and why do you think that you're able to just own who you are?
Ooh, my mom will tell you that I've been like that since I was born, but, you know, I think more so it's having parents who really encourage me, even within my own culture, my own Haitian culture, and just in general, that kids are typically, it's better to be seen and not heard, right? But my parents, my mom especially, always gave room for me to be myself. She always gave room for me. It's like the difference between when you frame someone as being stubborn versus determined. Like, she would say that I'm determined. And so she fostered and nourished that in me. And so I just never, with the people who matter most to me, I've never felt that I couldn't be myself. But one thing that people don't know about me is that for most of my life, I've had really bad social anxiety. Like, so I think that has really shaped the way that I think it's important for me to show up as myself, because then I'll think in my mind, I have to be this character, and then I'll spend the rest of my life being that character. Or if you've met me in character, then I have to keep trying to match that. And so many of us wear masks where we're always trying to be in character. And because of that social anxiety, it's okay for me. It relieves me of having to play a role, and instead just being my full self. And I think that the interesting thing about it is when you're your full self, it does a couple of things. It'll attract the people who vibe with you, and then there's some people who won't vibe with you. And I know as humans, we always want everyone to vibe with us, but the reality is it's better just to be yourself. And so, I thank my parents for that. They always encouraged me to, like when I was 3 years old, I told them I wanted to go to school. And you don't start school till you're 5. And my mom was like, oh, okay, you can do it. And then I started first grade when I was 3 years old because I said I wanted to do it. She was determined to make it happen. The school didn't want to do it. They did it. So I have those early memories of, I could be myself.
You touched on something really important, which is having people that foster something like that in you, right? And say it's okay to be who you are. You don't have to wear this or do that.
Yeah.
And I think too, with being unapologetically yourself, that doesn't mean necessarily that you don't care what people think, right?
Yeah,
I think those get confused. Like, I am who I am and I don't care what you think, but it's almost just having confidence and being okay with yourself and less about other people, right?
Definitely. I think if you don't care about what people think about you, then you might not be socially intelligent or emotionally intelligent, right? I think it's always important to be mindful of your behavior and how others are perceiving you. I think it's similar. I'll give you an example. Unfortunately, if someone close to you passed away and you're grieving, people wouldn't say you're depressed because there was an incident that happened and it's not abnormal for you to grieve. Like, it becomes mental health when it affects your daily life, and it's something that is abnormal that's affecting your daily life. So it's definitely okay, and you should have some level of awareness or care about what people think about you. The challenge is, for a lot of us, it drives us, and social media is a part of that. It drives us to the extreme where what people feel or think about us drives how we move. It drives our behavior. It drives how we live our life. And that's where it's affecting your daily life. And so when people say that being authentically yourself, it means you don't have to be all of your full, like, how you are in a business meeting might not be how you are if you're going to your friend's birthday party, right? So it doesn't mean you always have to come in and every aspect of yourself is on display. But what it means is who you're representing yourself is true to who you are inside. And so, I just encourage people because I know I've talked to a number of leaders who have struggled with that, where, they're like, well, I'm never going to get to a point where I don't care about what people think about me. I mean, I think it's important. I care about what people think about me. I want them to have a positive experience. I want them to feel like they're their best when they're around me. That matters to me. And also, if someone because has nothing to do with me, you're going to feel negatively about yourself because I'm shining, and then that's going to make you feel less than, then I'm not going to diminish my light in order to make you feel better, because no matter how much I diminish myself, you'll never be enough for yourself, right? And so, and then what that does is, so many people who are inspired by the light that we give, they don't have the opportunity to experience that light, to experience that inspiration, to experience that motivation, because you're worried about not shining too bright. So, I think it's perfectly good and human to care about what people think.
You're absolutely right. Like, we do tend to, as a society, diminish our light to make sure others are comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And which brings me to, like, that's why it's so important to have the right tribe around you. And you are one of those people. I think you are always uplifting.
Oh, thank you.
Your friends. And I think that's a really beautiful quality. But I'm just curious, is that just something that you've always been like? Or what is it about uplifting the people around you that feeds your soul?
Yeah, I would say that ever since I could remember, I've been someone who sees people right? It's not something that I could help. Like I see people, a number of my friends might say, you were the first person to tell me I was going to do X or I was going to do Y, right? And I don't think of it because it's just how I am. Like I see people and all I'm doing is just being myself. Like one of the things that the distinction is I don't hype BS. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, oh, well, I'm just motivating someone. No, it's like I'm actually telling the truth. Like it's like I'm really telling the truth. So it's just me being myself.
Genuine.
It's just genuine, right? It's not hype. It's complimentary. Like I'll notice if someone just got a haircut and their hairstyle is different. Not because I'm trying to notice, but that's just who I am as a person. And I think other people notice it too. We're just taught not to compliment someone, right? Or we're taught that or if it's uncomfortable for us to receive praise, then we don't want to make somebody else uncomfortable. And so it's really, I have some of the most amazing friends that really do amazing things, like whether it's this podcast or having really amazing restaurants or having art or just not even something that society might recognize as a great thing, but they're just really great people. But that's where we talked a little earlier about being yourself. When you're yourself, you attract the kinds of people that will feed that version of you. And so by doing that, when I say the right people, I mean the people who just have the same values as me. So in many ways, I'm the privileged one. I'm the lucky one. People feed my soul. Like when I see my friend, like you having a podcast, it's like, oh, that's really amazing. Maybe I can have a podcast one day. Or when you see someone achieve a goal, it feels so much closer because they did it. And if we're friends, then that means that potentially I can do it too. And I know that's how some of my friends see all the things that I do. So there's no hate there. It's just love. It's just a mutual admiration amongst our group.
I think it comes from a place of self-love too, right? Like if you love yourself to a certain degree, you're able to show love to other people, right?
That's a good one. I think that's like the golden, there's a golden rule that says treat everyone how you want to be treated. But then it's like, in my spiritual practice, there's a saying that says, love your neighbor as yourself. And when I was younger, I used to think that it meant, you have to go ahead and love your neighbor the same way you love yourself. And what I realized as I've gotten older, what it really means is you're going to love your neighbor the same way you love yourself. It's just a principle. So a lot of people feel a certain level of tension and internal hate within themselves. So then that's the energy you give the people around you. And it's less of that person has an issue with you and more of a reflection of how they feel about themselves. And so when you're coming from a place of confidence and not a place of judgment, like it doesn't take away from you when somebody else does great. One of my favorite quotes, the author's unknown, some people say it's Buddhist, but it says a candle loses nothing when it lights another. Like you never see a candle lose anything when it lights another. And so that's kind of like the principle of abundance. And so if you feel that way about yourself internally, it means nothing if someone's shining really bright. It's not like, well, the spotlight's on them and no one's seeing me. Like, no, it doesn't work like that.
I want to share a story about you.
I'm nervous.
Especially because you said, you don't BS the compliments. They're genuine. And you do keep it real. You do. I remember you asked me to be a part of the first fashion show I've ever been a part of.
Hey, you were so good, by the way. Not to skip to the end. She was good.
Well, that's what I really wanted to touch on. No. And you were highlighting like community leaders, and I didn't feel like I was like doing anything. I didn't feel like I was worthy of being in that fashion show. And we had that conversation, and you were like, again, Mana, you have to like, I believe in you. You have to believe in yourself. But that's not even the story, although I remembered that as I was telling it. You were collecting headshots.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I had never really taken a headshot. I had a few for work that were like not what I wanted to use. And so I sent you these pictures of like me out with friends. And you were like, you can't use these. These are like filtered and whatever. And you took the time out of your busy schedule a few days before this fashion show, and you came over.
Oh yeah,
and you took headshots.
I was trying to think of. Oh yeah.
I was remembering that story the other day when I was thinking about this interview, and I was like, that's just so amazing. Like when I talk about support, you wanted to show me in the best light, and you were like, "Girl, you got to have a better headshot than this." And we went around my apartment complex and took pictures, and It just, that's the type of love that makes you believe in yourself and lifts you up. And, now with the podcast, I got all these
I was
going to
say, have you seen season 2, the cover for season 2? Come on now.
I'm just, now, of course, there's all these images and all these pictures, but I wasn't living that life. And so, again, you do keep it real, and being supportive of your friends doesn't mean that you can't be honest.
Yeah.
It just means that you genuinely want the best for them. And so,
Dang, I forgot. I completely forgot about that. I was like, where's she going with this? And, I think that's where that you're saying about, I know a lot of people who use friendship as a business strategy, right? And that's where I think that lack of genuineness could be a problem, because there's nothing wrong with having strategy, right? There's nothing wrong with, I think it's important to be clear about what the relationship is if you're trying to establish a business relationship. But a lot of the relationships that I've seen over time that have soured is when it's really a business strategy. There's not a genuine desire to actually really be friends. And when you're genuine, you forget those things. Like, I completely forgot about that. I completely forgot about that because it was what was needed in the moment. Oh, my friend needs headshots. We're doing this event. There's going to be a lot of people there. Care 11 had covered it, all these other things. And I'm like, oh no, you have to represent you in the best light possible. And so as a friend, and that's what any friend would do. Right. And so, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, Mana.
Yeah, it is a cool story. And it's just, it goes back to, you were doing it, being genuine, you thought nothing of it, but look at the impact it made on me. Oh, man, right? When you think about kindness and the impact it makes on somebody, truly. And you just touched on something, that actually leads me to ask you. You said a lot of people view networking or relationships as a business transaction, especially as we get older.
Yeah.
You are like the ultimate connector.
That's crazy.
I think half of the people I know in the city at the moment, I met probably through you. Which, I moved back here at 37 years old and wasn't expecting to meet anybody new. Why do you think, what makes you good at being a connector? Do you think it's the fact that it's genuine?
I don't even, so the thing is as somebody who's had social anxiety most of my life, but for some reason I've always been in the cool kid circle. It's always, I feel like an inside outsider because I have all this social anxiety leading up to whether it's the friends getting together or whatever. Like, since I was a kid, I've had really bad social anxiety. So leading up to whatever it is, I'm always anxious. And so when I'm there, I'm trying to make sure that everybody's comfortable because I know what it feels like when I'm anxious. I'm also an extrovert, so it's really weird. I've had bad social anxiety and I'm an extrovert. So I get my energy from being around people and when I'm there, but being around people makes me really anxious. And so I think that I'm always trying to make sure that others are comfortable too. Making sure that, because when I'm there, I have all the energy in the world. When I'm there, it's like, oh, I'm getting energy, all those things. And so for me, I'm always also thinking about who you are as a person, who the person I'm connecting you with, what that connection would mean. So rarely ever I'm introducing two people together just randomly or just because. It's because I know something about you and I know something about that person, whether it's something in your personal life or something in your professional life that, oh, you two should know each other. Like, you guys don't know each other. And that's usually where the connections happen. And so
that's actually exactly what you say. See? When you make an introduction, you go, you guys don't know each other.
But it's crazy to think, some people are like, how do you not? It's like you doing this podcast, now, even before the podcast, how you're such a human person and you like human interaction. And there's someone who's a really great artist that depicts humans and such. How do you not know that artist? How do you not know Flan? How do you not? So that's genuinely where it comes from. And then so one is genuine, but two, there's a purpose that connection happens. There's a compatibility. I will never connect two people together or if there isn't a compatibility. So I want to make sure that it's compatible. And so if I'm introducing you, it's going to be compatible. When we started our event, Humans Get Together, the whole piece is highly curated. People don't see that when they're there, but it's a lot of psychology and decision architecture. We have these little note cards. So whether you're an introvert or extrovert, we create these 2 rounds of note cards. So no one feels like they have to have the skills to do it. And then after you have your second question, you're loose. You're like, oh, okay, well, now you want to meet, now you're, because I think humans genuinely love and we were created to be in community. So when we connect and that energy is right, I think it releases a certain level of joy. And so I strive for that joy to happen when I connect to people. And so if that means that I'm a good connector, then cool. I never thought of it that way. But
So I know I said you are, but
yeah.
what is your favorite quality about yourself? Since we're
Ooh.
talking about loving ourselves and kindness to ourselves. Did I stump Jeff?
Yeah, no, that's
Ooh.
interesting. Yeah. My greatest quality about myself. Wow. I think I'm a very determined person. And I got that from seeing my dad be like that, right? Where if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if we're painting a picture of the future, it might not happen in the timeline. I might say something's going to happen in 6 months. It's going to happen even if it takes 3 years. Like I'm very determined to, like, talent is cool, but listen, I tell people, you know, I've been willing to sacrifice everything but my soul for my goals. And whether that's, you know, going 2 to 3 nights without sleeping because that's what's required, or whatever's needed, like, I think that that's a quality that if I didn't have it, I don't think I'd be here. Because we've done a lot of things that previously were impossible. But I saw my mom and my dad do that, you know, as immigrants coming into this country. And even back at home, like you don't know what's possible until you've exhausted every last ounce of energy you have. And then you get your behind back up and do it again, even if you ran out. So that's, yeah, you did stomp me a little bit, but it's that determination.
I think I'm also an immigrant child, as you know.
Yeah.
And there is something about watching your parents come here and like grind it out.
Yeah.
That just instills a different level of determination. So I can definitely relate to that. I'm going to switch it up on you.
Okay.
What is your favorite quality in another person?
Oh, my favorite quality in another person is authenticity. Like being real with yourself. Like, I don't even think like people are bad or good. I think we have good and bad qualities as humans, right? We have character development opportunities. I know I have several, but if you're real with yourself, like, I just love that. I just love, like, you know, who you see is who you are. Like, I love that because I could trust that. I could trust you to be you, even if that means that there's certain flaws you have. Like, I could trust that you're going to display those flaws eventually. But if I've accepted our friendship, I've accepted our relationship. I think the best example of this is my marriage to Ashley, the wonderful Ashley Booker, is that, like, there's nothing she could do that would make me fall out of love with her. Because she's always been genuine to who she is as a person. Like, I've accepted those things. And so it makes the great things about her even more wonderful. But what ruins relationships are when people aren't kind of real. And so that quality to be authentic, to be who you are, I just value that. And I think all my friends are that. So it goes back to what you were saying earlier.
Do you think a part of that is that the intentions behind, you know, people have bad and good qualities, but if the intention is not a malicious one and a good one, right?
Yeah.
Like, intention probably plays a role in what you're saying, right?
I mean, it could, but you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You know, like,
fair enough.
I think intentions matter to a certain point, but if I don't intend to do something harmful and it's harmful, like, the person still feels the harm. So I think it's more about if it happened and you're going to apologize, right? It's like, it's not even the intention. It's about you recognize that you did something that hurt that person, even if that wasn't your intention. And you're able to say, hey, that's my bad. That wasn't my intention. That's more important. Whereas someone might not have intended to do something and they did it, but they never owned up to it. Whereas someone might have intended to be harmful. They did it. And then on the back end, they have that conversation. Hey, you know, I had really bad intentions. My motivation was terrible. Like, I respect that. Like, I'll still be that person's friend, even if they had bad intentions. So I guess that's how I view intention.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah, we all deserve, like, one of the things that you know, my spiritual practice, I saw this quote one time. I grew up Christian. I grew up in the church, black church, and there's two characters. So Jesus had these 12 disciples, and there's Judas who eventually betrayed him, and there's Peter who denied him. Peter had a bad day. Judas had a bad heart. Like, see, you can have friends who have bad days, and sometimes they can intentionally have a bad day. But if you got a bad heart, I don't want you around me. So, and those are the people who they're always pretending to be something that they're not. It's because being associated with you might provide them with something. And so they might even be the people who are doing the things you want them to do all the time. Like, they're like, of course I'll do this for you. Of course I'll do it. But under it, there's something. There's like, they're not being authentic. And so I value that a lot. I value that authenticity because I'm willing to put in work in the relationship just like the other person. I'm not a person who folks have to cater to me. So yeah, I think that intention could be, when it comes to this, could be a little overrated.
I wanted your thought on something. I know we've talked a lot about this offline, but
Okay.
why is it, speaking of intentions and friendships and actions, why is it that some people can be there for you in the bad times?
Yeah.
But it's actually harder for them to be there for you in the good times. And I know, the first answer is, well, they're just, it's not about you. It's whatever they're going through. But like, what is your take on that? And is it deeper than that?
I think that is really deep. So it's a really great point that you made. I think that's really deep. Also, I think some people find their value in what they can do for you. That's how they measure their value. They measure their value in their ability to help. They measure their value in their ability to uplift you. They measure their value in their ability for you to see that there's someone who's adding to you, right? Like they view themselves as a resource. And oftentimes, as you shine, what they find their value in, you no longer need. And so then they feel like they're not needed. And if you look at those people that you're mentioning, whoever they might be in your life, they're usually the ones who distance themselves from you. It's often not like you're distancing yourself from them. It's like they feel like they no longer fit in the puzzle of your life. And, that's unfortunate because those are probably some of the people who've seen you through your worst times. And so it's like, that's where as a human, we can't derive our value from what we do for others. We have, like you said about that self-love, it's so important. That's why when we talked about authenticity, right? What I look for in our value, it's important for my friends to know that the quality of our friendship is not based on what you can do for me. The quality of our friendship is based on the shared values that we have for each other. Like, I don't keep score. It might mean like I've done 10 things for you and you've only done one for me, or vice versa. But there's not a scorekeeping because it's about values. And so a lot of people, relationships are codependent. It's that codependency. And so now when it's like they feel like a hanger-on as you get bigger, where it's like, no, it was never about that. Like we're good friends. And so I think that's primarily where it comes from, where people self-select out of your life because they feel like now you're becoming larger than life. And and we change, like we grow, and some people they don't grow with you. And what I want to say too is it's okay. That's why we have seasons. We have spring, summer, fall, winter. Or in Minnesota, we have construction. That's the season. But we have seasons for a reason. Certain plants only grow during certain seasons. And sometimes it also comes from certain friends that should be a friend for a season. You've in your mind or they in their mind have made themselves a friend for a lifetime. So you can't even enjoy the season. You know what I mean? You can't even enjoy the season. So a lot of times we're in spaces where even business partnerships, like it was really great when you were thinking about starting your first business, but that business partner in your next business that's going to be the $1 billion business, they might not even want that. That might not even be something that they want. And so we got to normalize seasonal friends. And it sounds bad. Like, it's like, no, like I was in a space of my life where I needed a jacket. If I walk in the summer with a jacket on, you might look at me like I'm crazy. And as long as we enjoy and value and it's mutual respect, like I'll see you every winter. And there might be those, back to what you were saying earlier, right? So there's as you're talking about those friends, now when you fall on your face, those same friends might come back around because now now you need them again, right? So are you going to say, well, no, you can't be my friend because when I was up, you felt uncomfortable around me, right? It's like it's okay for us to have different friends that fit in different seasons.
I was thinking the other day about this concept of, it's hard when friendships or relationships change.
Yeah.
It's a form of grief.
Yeah.
And I've been adopting this like mantra of like thanking that person.
Yeah.
It's almost like thank you for the experience, the season, the whatever the reason, and letting them go like with grace.
Yeah.
I think it just kind of helps put,
Do you think we take it do you think the problem too is that we take it personal?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
For
like
sure.
It's like we're asking ourselves oftentimes like, what is it about me that's causing that person to do that versus what is it about them? Right?
Absolutely.
And rarely do we ever, I find it, that's why like I like having real conversations with people like, hey, you kind of like changed a little bit. What's going on? Like I'll pull up on somebody. If I think we friends for real and you start acting a little like, that's happened to me a lot this year. That's happened to me a lot this year. Like I've experienced that a lot.
So on the flip though, do you have the ones where you're like, you know what? I'm kind of okay with this.
Well, that's because I think sometimes, I think friendship is mutual, but there are some friends who view you as a friend who you may not necessarily view them as a friend. You know what I mean? So it's like, you don't feel a big loss if like the loss that you have if it's a parent or a spouse or your best friend is not the same loss you have as if it's a distant cousin.
Absolutely.
So if it's one of those distant cousin type situations, and when it comes to the friendship, it's like, oh man, listen, I'm glad. I'm a little glad. Sometimes I might be a little glad you're no longer part of this part of my life a little bit. You know what I mean? So it's okay to, because if it's forced, what are we doing?
Right.
We're at an age where it can't be forced. That's what I'm saying. Like we're at an age where it can't be forced. That's why just be yourself, so I could be myself, so we could be cool. Again, we're all adults. We know I have character development opportunities. You have character development. Let's just be honest and real, so that we're making an informed. At the end of the day, let's just make an informed decision as friends or as business partners, right? It's the same thing in any relationship. A lot of times people will be like, "You changed." No, the person just became the version of themselves they always were, but they never felt they could be because they were trying to impress you. And so now they're being their full selves, and you realize that ain't the person who I became friends with, or that's not the person who I married, or that's not the business. Well, if you created space for them to be their full self from the beginning, you would be able to make a quick decision if I want to participate in this experience or not.
Jeff, that's the episode reel right there. Switching gears a bit.
Yeah.
You have 2 beautiful boys.
Yeah.
What kind of world do you want for them?
Yeah, I want a world for me, the world that I'm creating and that I'm actively creating for them is a world where they could be their full selves, that the only thing that would block them from the future that they want to see is their inability to put in the work or them not having the capacity to think of it. Like right now, you can determine someone's health by just the zip code that they're born in. The zip code that you're born in and the zip code that you're raised in people can see how your life expectancy, we can see what your bank account's going to look like. And I think that that's fundamentally flawed. So I want them to grow up in a world that has true meritocracy. I want them to grow up in a world where it doesn't matter kind of where you're from or what you look like or what region that you're from, that you genuinely can become all that you want to be. And I want them to have a genuine belief that they can write the rules. I want, especially my older son now, he's 5 and he's like that. I tell you, he's about to be 5. He definitely has main character energy. And I'm seeing the world that he's creating even amongst his classmates. Like he'll tell me all the time, "Daddy, I'm the leader." Oh, okay, nice. Like, he believes he can do whatever he wants to do. And so in many ways, in small ways, I'm doing that in my household and in the interactions that I have with him, but I want to create the world to be more like that. And, I've had the privilege of partnering with a lot of people in my work to be doing that. So I'm literally doing that as part of my work. And so So that's the world I want to see for them. And I do think that, though, either we create that world or we might be non-existent as a human species in the next 50 years. We're developing the kind of tools where we will destroy ourselves.
I was just going to ask you, are you scared about the future of humanity?
I'm not scared of it, but I will say that this is something that I've been telling people for like 10 years. With technological advances and the things that are happening with the environment and where we are geopolitically, if we don't figure out how to better experience the world together as humans, we will destroy ourselves, because we are creating the tools now that can destroy ourselves. And it only takes one person, one nation, one company to be so angry to release a thing that can ultimately destroy us. I think we saw that in the pandemic, how one thing can literally affect all of humanity. I've never thought in my whole life that I would experience something like that where the whole world is shut down. Like, wow, like that's possible. So I do think we're developing the tools that can destroy all of humanity. And I think that's a different place than we were even 50 years ago. Like, people were thinking about the atomic bomb and all those things, but technological advances and everything else. So it's not a fear of mine, but it's an appropriate reverence of, if we don't do this, like even look at it within our country, if we don't start finding better ways to define who we are as Americans, that everybody can find themselves, we're headed towards a civil disagreement that eventually will lead to all kinds of things, and I think we just got to be real and sober minded about this. So like this whole idea of humanity, and we're talking about connections and bringing people together. It's not just pie in the sky, or it's Martin Luther King has a quote that it really boggles my mind, where he said that it's no longer about nonviolence, between violence and nonviolence. It's about between nonviolence and non-existence. And so as I'm thinking about our arc over the next 30 years, I don't think it's any longer about us finding common ground as humans as a way to advance humanity. I think if we don't, the future of humanity is in peril.
Why is everything so divisive nowadays?
So I think we have always disagreed as humans, and it's okay for us to have disagreements. One of the things I always tell people is my lived experience is different from someone else's. And so my worldview is based off of my world experiences. And someone else's worldview is based off of their own world experiences. As we kind of interact more, you start seeing we have more in common. The major challenge that we have now is not to blame social media, but the algorithms from a technological standpoint, the algorithms of social media, which most humans are on, are geared towards what's going to keep your attention for the longest. Positive things don't keep our attention as humans. And so the algorithms, though they're designed to keep our attention, they're going to find whatever the things are that are going to keep our attention. What keeps our attention is division. That keeps our attention the longest. Learning about why those people are so different than you. That's what keeps our attention the longest. And so when you look at the issues that we've had historically as a human race, whether that's tribalism or racism or sexism or whatever ism you can think of, now you literally have algorithms that are feeding you more of what you already think of. So when I was a kid growing up, you pretty much had only a few channels to watch, and it was on prime time. So you'd probably maybe watch a little bit of Fox, a little bit of NBC, a little bit of whatever. So you'd get a lot of perspectives. Now you have so much media, and they're all geared towards what you already like. So you're only going to become more of who you are. So you never then, or you don't feel like you should get to know someone else who's different than you. And so when you do, they're the enemy. And so now you have this is the enemy if they don't think like me. They might be the enemy if they don't look like me. They're the enemy if they didn't grow up the same way as me. And this is what algorithms continue to promote, because it's what drives our attention. So that's what's fundamentally broken within us as humans. And what technology has done is they've amplified this idea of difference, when really, when you look at it, most of us are, our DNA is 99.99999% the same, no matter what race you are. Like, It's like we have more in common. Like I was just talking to someone the other day, and he's from West Virginia. He was telling me how in West Virginia, they don't have a city there's no city in West Virginia that has more than 50,000 people. And he was telling me some of the struggles in West Virginia. Is one of my colleagues, he's white, he's older, he's a lawyer. And I'm like, when he's telling me about the issues in West Virginia, I was like, oh, that sounds like the issues in North Minneapolis. But if we don't have a platform where we're sharing, conversation, then I'm thinking their issues are so different.
Right.
Social media promotes that. Simple, it does. Now, there's good things for social media. I don't want to like dunk on social media, but that division keep our attention. Just like how we want to go see violence, we want to go get excited. Like what brings us a level of excitement are things that are oftentimes not the best. So
kind of goes back to the whole idea of being mindful of what we're taking in all day long, especially because it is an algorithm. So that's a really, really great point.
And the algorithm is just based off of who we are as humans, because I don't want people to think like there's this algorithm. The algorithm is just designed to keep your attention, because the longer you're on the social media, the more they can monetize you. The longer you're on the social media, the more advertisements you see, the whatever. So the root cause is the fact that we haven't figured out as a species, what it means to get along together. Like we just haven't figured that, and we haven't figured that out for a very long time. And it's just now with this amplification of social media, it's more and more important for us to figure it out, because we're triggered by even saying, like, depending on how you vote, if I say the word Republican, you already have an image in your mind. If I say the word Democrat, like whatever word I use, I didn't even describe the person, you already have like a sense of, oh, those people. It's like they could be the best person in the world. They just happen to vote differently than you.
Right. And I think, the theme of this season is, in order to bring your best self into society and relationships, you have to work on what's inside.
Yeah.
So I've been asking everybody, this is kind of the closing question. How do you show yourself kindness, especially on the days that are tougher?
I think I'm always very kind to myself, because I've accepted that I have character development things that I need to work on. I've accepted that I'm human. Therefore, I inhabit both light and darkness. I've accepted that my flaws aren't something that should be thrown away or something that are the worst things in the world. My flaws are part of what makes me human. Like, I'm not perfect, and none of us are. We're not operating on codes, and so because I've accepted that about myself, I can forgive myself. I can admit when I'm wrong, and I can forgive myself because I can admit that I did something I shouldn't have done. And I'm like that with my wife. I'm like that with my kids. I'm like that with my partners. I'm like that with my community. And so when I'm having a really bad day, I can see that this really bad day is causing me to make poor decisions. And I can own those decisions that I made. And so the admission that I'm human and my willingness to admit that to others makes being human not a bad thing at all. And if you ask me, what we love most about the people we love is not about the things that they do. It's about their willingness to get back up. Like when I think about, my wife, who I've been with for, as my partner going on 15 years. It's not about all the great days, but I know in my worst days, I could say I'm sorry and we could start again. She could say she's sorry and we can start again. And so when I think about being kind to myself, is having those same expectations for myself, is that I'm a flawed human. As long as I can admit that I need help, then on my worst days, I can first admit that. I could request that. I could apologize if I did something wrong. And that humility, I think, makes other people trust. They can trust my heart. you might not always agree with my decisions, but you can trust my heart was in the right place.
Forgiveness is such like a unique and beautiful trait to have, not just for other people, but for yourself, because some of us go through life still sitting in shame or not having forgiven ourselves for some decision at some point. And so the fact that you're saying part of your kindness is like, forgiving yourself, I think is so strong. And I think that this community will just take a lot away from that.
Well, thanks so much, Mana. I mean, wow, you got deep there. A couple of times I wanted to shed a tear, but I can't do it on camera if it was just voice.
Well, listen, this is my therapy. So
it's very, very therapeutic for sure.
Very therapeutic. It is. Yeah. And I was thinking about it the other day. I said, that's okay to say that this journey is therapeutic. It's not just this podcast that's going to hopefully make an impact on people's lives. It's going to make an impact on mine too.
Exactly. It's crazy.
That's okay.
I know we're probably asked our last question when you asked the last question, but that's kind of what I'm seeing too. Like what does the podcast do for you? And I think primarily, I was like listening to Rick Rubin the other day, and he was like, all these artists come to him to make these great hits, and he has no background in music and all those things. And he's like, the problem with a lot of movies now and everything else is you're making it for an audience. It's no longer art at that point. It comes to be that as humans, when we make something especially for us and so uniquely for us, it turns out other people find that beautiful.
Every conversation I have had on the show, especially this season, has really filled my cup. Ooh. And I don't get to see you often, so this was really cool.
Thank you.
Just to do this. And it's like one of our coffee chats.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. I really, really think people love hearing from you. And I think the broader community who doesn't know you that listens to the podcast is just going to pick up on all the gems that you shared. So it means a lot to have you.